Welcome back to Locked On Blues. So the Blues defeated the Hurricanes in a shootout. And I have to tell you, this probably was the best game that the Blues had all season long. And I cannot wait to tell you more about it coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues. I have to tell you, I'm at the arena right now, obviously I cover out of hockey. And I think for me, this was probably the most excited I have been to do an episode, considering the fact that the win against the Canes was probably the best win all season. The Blues recently came off of a win against the Canucks the other night, and then you have a win against the Canes in a shootout. It is unbelievable. So I'll be talking about that game. I am back on the Blues train and, of course, looking ahead. Before I dive deeper into today's episode, I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So this game on Saturday night, some of the best hockey I have ever seen out of St. Louis. I thought for sure, oh my God, this is going to be a really tough game. One thing, an 8 p.m. puck drop, but one thing about this game is that this team put all their effort in immediately. By the way, I apologize. I'm at Enterprise right now, so it's a little bit of a static thing. But this team put all their energy in immediately, and it insinuated for some really good hockey. The first period, it was interesting because I did think Carolina came out a little bit stronger, even though the Blues had good chances. About the first 30 seconds in, I believe it was Jordan Kyrou almost had an opportunity to get a goal, but unfortunately that play ended up being a little bit funky and nothing happened in that sense. But there was a lot of good opportunities. Going forward, I do have to say that Jordan Binnington in net probably had his best game of the season. And it was just overall a successful game for St. Louis. Now, I'm less concerned about the Carolina Hurricanes. I thought that they did play well, but Binnington had 29 saves. So, okay, let's go break down the scoring. So, first period, Nathan Walker, who I did predict was going to score the other night, did have a goal, which made it 1-0. He was assisted by Oscar Sundqvist. And, of course, my favorite person on the Blues, Torrey Krug. Hashtag send Torrey Krug to the All-Stars. About a couple minutes after Walker's goal, the Canes scored. And that was going to be it for goals in regulation. And then eventually it did go to a shootout. And I'm going to break down what happened. So Carolina was up first, obviously, and it was saved by Binnington. Robert Thomas's goal was then saved, which kind of sucked. And then Canes, again, their goal was saved by Binnington, and then Buchnevich's goal was saved. So then we're going to the third round, and Canes' goal was scored, and then Kyrou's goal was then saved. And then we go into where it gets a little bit exciting. Sebastian Aho had a little nice of a backhand shot that did go in the net for Carolina. So it was up to the one and only hashtag Jake Neighbors season to get a goal to keep the Blues alive, and he got that goal in the back of the net. We go to the fifth round of the shootout. The Canes miss. So who is up in the fifth round? Well, that is Captain Brayden Schenn, and he had a nice wrist shot and was able to give the Blues the win. I have to tell you, when I was watching this, I was freaking out. I went on to Twitter at Locked On Blues, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Captain is back. We're so back. Because it was probably the most amped up I've seen Schenner all season. And I think that just solidified how I felt about him. He's had a really rough season. Again, that goal doesn't count towards anything, but only 8 assists, 8 goals all season. So the fact that he was able to come on and to be really strong with probably the most crucial goal that he could have had, I mean, that 2 points, it does mean something. You get those 2 points against Vancouver, then you get those 2 points against Carolina. And then you think, okay, well, did St. Louis move up in the standings? And yes, they did. They now have 41 points, 20 wins, 17 losses, and 1 overtime loss, which resulted in 1 point. So this was a much-needed win for the Blues. I also think this got the confidence back. I saw also anybody that hates on my boy Colton Parayko, I have some problems with you because he played a stellar game as well. He is such a good two-way defender. He's so good on the defense, right? But then when you get him past that blue line, he's also solid on offense. I think St. Louis, their biggest struggle, obviously, we all know this, is the defense. But then when you put them into the offense, they have been really doing a lot better with playing defensive offense. What do I mean by that? They're able to get back if needed instead of getting too forward ahead of the blue line. But this game also gave me a lot of hope when it comes to Binnington. I think that he struggled quite a bit in net. I'm not saying that he is a bad goalie by any means because I know that he isn't, but I do think that he struggled, and I would be foolish not for me to admit that. But I think at the end of the day that this is your franchise goalie. I know there's been talks of, potentially trading him at the deadline, but I don't think that's the smart idea. I don't think that's the right idea. I don't think that you do that to a guy like Jordan Binnington that is stable in net. I also think so far this season, he's had no fights on the ice. He hasn't been playing dirty. He's been playing his most focused hockey, which does go for something. And it does say that there is a sense of maturity within Binnington where you do have to evaluate him and say, okay, he's more beneficial to this team than he isn't. So at the end of the day, you look at this game against Carolina, and I was live tweeting this entire game because I usually don't. I usually watch the games in silence. I was like, I'm going to live tweet it. I think this was the most excited I've ever been about a hockey game all season long. And I think it just goes for the fact that this team played their hearts out. I could say other words I'm not going to on this podcast, but you can insinuate what I'm saying with how hard and how focused and how strong they were. And their penalty kill was good. Their power play unit was good. I mean, I know there was no goals made in the power play, but they looked better and they're getting shots on net. I think Jordan Kyrou looked awesome. But of course, who does it always come down to that saves the Blues? It is two people. It's usually Robert Thomas, Jordan Binnington, or Jake Neighbors. And while Thomas really didn't have anything spectacular in the game, he did play solid offense. He was making those good passes. He was having good positioning. And that's the thing about Robert Thomas is even if he doesn't get any points in a game, you still have to look at the fact that he is still doing something to maybe help out with that. So I think that just overall, these have been two really good games for St. Louis, two games that I thought they were going to lose. When I was looking at the stretch of the games, I even pointed out, and I said to you here on Locked On Blues, this is going to be their most challenging set of games because the Canucks, I'm still going to say it, they're still a really good hockey team. And Carolina is still a really good hockey team. I think they're on a 13-game point streak, but they are a strong team. So you have two very strong teams going against what was a struggling St. Louis team. And I think that you factor all of that in, and you're probably not expecting the Blues to maybe have the best game possible, but they did. And I think that first 30 seconds really did show that, hey, this team is aggressive. They're net hungry tonight. And if the puck went in that net in that first 30 seconds, I would have been freaking out. I really would have been. But it didn't, unfortunately. And it's fine because then Nathan Walker scored the first goal of the game. And the Aussie, I was so excited that they brought up Nathan Walker from the Thunderbirds. 29 points in 30 games down there with the AHL team out of Springfield. And he proved himself. I mean, 29 years old, but he's still working extremely hard to get to where he is. So you have to give guys like that a shot. And he definitely earned it. There's always a saying, right, where it's like, do you earn it or do you deserve it? He earned it and he deserves it because he put in the work down in the AHL. And that's not an easy thing to do when you have 56 games in the NHL this season before you get sent back down. You haven't played in the NHL all season, but yet you're such an impactful player. I think that goes for something. And I know some of you live near Springfield and you've been able to see the Thunderbirds in person. And I think you can attest that they have been playing very good hockey. I do want to let you know about my friends over at Gametime. Sometimes when you're buying tickets, it can be a little bit frustrating. You want to see where you're sitting. You want to make sure you have the best price guaranteed. Well, with Gametime, you can do that. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see exactly where you're sitting. So you can have a little seating chart. Click on the seat that you want to see, and you have the views from the left, from the right, up, down, all around. Also, Gametime makes sure that you get the best prices guaranteed. So you're not being scammed with any of those fees. Gametime makes sure that you're getting honest, good tickets. They also have zone deals, flash deals, and so much more. So you can get even better seats with even better deals. So this is what I need you to do right now. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I am back on the Blues train, and how could you not be? This team is exciting. This team is giving me hope. I mean, we think about the game against Vancouver, right? And before that game, it was announced that Robert Thomas is an all-star, which obviously I don't think anybody's surprised about that one. But they have been playing good, exciting, and to be honest, competitive hockey. I mean, I couldn't say that about them maybe a couple weeks ago. I thought they still looked a little bit lackadaisical. I know, big word, but it's true. But now they've been playing hockey that is worth watching. If you haven't been excited about them, now is the time. They're still potential playoff contenders, right? I think that they have a somewhat easier of a schedule coming up. I do, and I've been saying that the whole time. But if you look at the Central Division right now, you have Winnipeg with 56 points, which I never thought the Jets were going to end up being that good, but they are. Colorado with 53, Dallas with 49, Nashville with 45, Blues with 41, Arizona with 40, Minnesota with 38, and then, of course, Chicago with 26. So you have the best team right now with 56 points and the worst team with 26. So that's a 30-point difference right now in the Central Division. But again, they were playing against the second best team in the Metropolitan Division within the Carolina Hurricanes. And hey, if you want to say, Haley, let's talk about the whole entire, Western Conference, even if you say so myself. If you want to maybe bring up the fact that they play the Vancouver Canucks at 53 points and they're the best team in the Pacific and the Blues still beat them, then obviously they can beat any team. I mean, the Canucks are above the Golden Knights that have been thriving for years now, I feel. Like I haven't seen the Knights go down whatsoever. So it's undoubtedly probably the most excited I've been about this team. But then let's take a reality check. This isn't a team that's going to go on a 10-game win streak, right? This is a team that maybe could go win a couple more, but let's go look at their schedule. And well, I'm going to do that in the next segment coming up. But let's focus right now on players to watch. Nathan Walker, I mean, Bannister even said himself that he was going to be a player that was going to be an impactful player offensively, and that's why he needed him. He's smarter on the net, he's sharper on the net, and he knows what he wants to do, and he knows how to get pucks in the back of the net. That is important for St. Louis. When we think about goal scorers, and the leaders on the team, who do you think of? You think of one person on the team, right? And who was that one person on the team that you're thinking of, that I know you're thinking of? That is my boy, Robert Thomas. When it comes to Robert Thomas, I think that he's the one person on the team that you can say is probably the best at everything right now. Now, there's a reason why. It's because Robert Thomas has 41 points, and he has 16 goals in the 38 games that he's played. Okay, so let's go talk about Nathan Walker. He played 30 games, accumulating 29 points. That means that Nathan Walker almost accumulated a point for every game that he's played in this season with the Thunderbirds. I think that goes for something. And if you were going to say, oh, well, the AHL is less competitive, it is still getting pucks in the back of the net. So there is no denying that. That is still a great effort by Walker, an effort that I am proud of, and an effort that I feel confident with him being up here in St. Louis. And you've seen that already. I mean, he was so close to scoring against the Canucks, a lot of opportunities, and then he was able to get the first goal for him, at least with the Blues this season, against the Canes. So I think when you truly evaluate his performance on the ice, I think that Nathan Walker is going to be a threat. And if you're coming to play the Blues, be concerned about Nathan Walker because he has added so much value to that fourth line. We all know that first line with Robert Thomas is competitive. We know Schenner's line is competitive. Kevin Hayes' third line is not really that competitive. But then you have that fourth line with Sonny, and then you have Walker. And then, I mean, it really depends on the day on who else you have. I mean, sometimes it's happening. It just depends on the day. But That's a good competitive line, and I would be a little bit concerned if you're coming to play the Blues about Nathan Walker and that St. Louis Blues fourth line. But I think that's all along what they wanted to do with that fourth line was get it slightly more competitive because it was lacking some of that skill offensively. Sonny, he's a good playmaker, some of the best in faceoffs, and so much value. But I think when you have another winger that is just such a solid player that is able to get pucks in the back of the net, because ultimately that was the goal at the end of the day. Get pucks back of the net. That's the whole purpose of hockey. It's to make sure pucks don't get in the back of your net and to make sure pucks get in the back of the other net. So Walker definitely adds that value. You know what else has value? FanDuel has some value. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on all the action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there's so many ways to bet, like live same game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab, and you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. It is the best way and the most popular way to find the parlays and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Let's go take a look at the Blues schedule and talk about what we're going to look for coming up with St. Louis. So tomorrow night, the Blues host the Florida Panthers, the Eastern Conference defending champions. And Matthew Tkachuk, I mean, I'm going to be very honest with you. He kind of scares me. I hope Bob's not in net. Bobrovsky, he probably will be in net, so that's going to suck. After the Panthers on Thursday, the Blues then will be hosting the Rangers for another 8 p.m. puck drop. And then you look ahead, and then on Saturday, the Blues will be hosting the Bruins, which again is another team that you should be concerned about. One of the best teams in the NHL right now, with being one of the best teams in the Atlantic Division. And then on Monday, the Blues will be hosting Philadelphia for an 8 p.m. puck drop. So the Blues do have a nice 4-game homestand coming up before then heading out to Washington to take on the Capitals on January 18th. So a lot of Metropolitan, a lot of Eastern Conference teams. You have 2 Atlantic teams, 2 Metropolitan teams. And this is going to be the real test for St. Louis. How will they do against the former defending Eastern Conference champions? How will they do against the best of the Metropolitan within the Rangers? And of course, the Bruins, always a competitive team, a team that really flopped last year in the playoffs, but still a team that plays some really good, tough hockey. And Philadelphia has been on a hot streak, so it's going to be interesting to see how the Blues compete against them. But I mean, this is so funny to me too, because I think this is the first time where Kevin Hayes will be facing his former team. And it's going to be funny to see how he does going against Philadelphia in that matter. I do think, though, that there is so much competitiveness coming up right now, and especially the back-to-back games with the Capitals, because then on Saturday the 20th, the Blues then host the Capitals. So I hope for one thing out of this. If we're looking at these next 6 games, realistically, how many points do you think St. Louis will get out of it? Do we think that they're going to get maybe 4 points? I could see them winning more than 2, but realistically, do you see them winning 3, 4? I don't know. I think against the Panthers, if we're going to be honest, and that's tomorrow night, tough game. I could see Florida winning. It depends on who they have, too. If they have Bobrovsky in it, sure, Florida could win. If you're looking at the Rangers, they're going to probably win. I'm going to be honest. But the Bruins are a really weird team because they can be some fluky sometimes when they play. So I don't know about them. And then, of course, Philadelphia, that's another team where you can't really tell how they're going to play. But especially those 2 games against the Capitals, I do think that there is going to be a lot of uncertainty on how they're going to do as well. So I think that these games coming up are going to be a huge test for St. Louis. And not just necessarily in how they play, not necessarily in what's been happening as of lately, but as in, can they maintain this level of competitiveness that they have? Can Robert Thomas continue his hot streak? Can Jake Neighbors continue being a solid goal scorer? And of course, Nathan Walker, how is he going to do? The young guy, I mean, I know he's 29, but the young Aussie and Nathan Walker, how is he going to do with all this pressure put on him? Because he is looked at as a guy that's going to be scoring some goals. And for me right now, I really have been, well, not like craving, but I really want to see Torrey Krug do some more. I know that he's been a high assisting machine this season, and I want to see him maybe score a goal or 2. And is that too much to ask? I think that if you're looking at sending guys to the All-Stars, obviously Torrey Krug is one of those guys that, I mean, I'm not saying that he's like that deserving of it, But who else on the team would you have? Would you have a guy like a Jordan Binghamton? Would you have a Jake Neighbors? No, I mean, I would probably, if I could choose any guy right now to send to the All Stars, I would probably want it to be Torrey Krug just because I genuinely like him and I hope that other teams see his value. And that's the thing about him is that I do want him out because I think his contract is absolutely ridiculous. So that's like the only reason why. But other than that, I don't necessarily think that there is another guy in the Blues that are deserving of being an All-Star. Maybe Colton Parayko, actually, if we're thinking about defensive guys. Not enough defensive guys, by the way, get sent down to the All-Star game. So I do think that he is somebody that I wouldn't be upset about seeing, but it depends. And I think there's going to be a lot that's going to factor into every decision being made. But at the same time, I am excited to see what happens. Use those hashtags and vote in who you think is best, even though I think Torrey Krug would be really cool to have into the All-Star game. I know this isn't the normal video background today, but when work calls, you got to make sure that you got to do what you got to do. All right, I will talk to you tomorrow to preview the Panthers game and then maybe do a quick post game afterwards. And hopefully we will see another win. And per usual, let's go Blues.